Hey, my name is Ben Akinbola, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Growth at AWAL. And to break that down a bit, there are really three parts to my role. Two parts on the strategy side. So one is just strategy for the company. How is AWAL positioned to partner with independent artists versus some of our competitors? And what are our strategic priorities as a company? How do we execute against those? Another part that's really just about internally, how do our teams work and trying to make sure we're as effective and as efficient as possible. So that can include things like DEI or even just reviewing processes between teams. And then on the growth side is really how do we grow both the number of artists who we work with, but also how we work with those artists. And so that could include things like during the pandemic, looking at live streaming and ways that could be supported for our artists, or also just investing in areas like hip hop and R&B, which is both a priority for the company and me personally right now. My favorite part about what I do at AWAL has to be that it's just incredibly dynamic, and there are a couple different ways that shows up. It's just the work itself, and so there's no 2 days that are the same for me. I could be working on entirely different topics one month to the next. Again, I brought up the live streaming during the pandemic as an example, or now the NFTs are a huge thing. So I love that aspect. I love the aspect of it's just dynamic in terms of the number of teams I work with internally. I've worked with pretty much every team at AWAL in some shape or fashion, and that includes people in LA, New York, London, Sweden, Australia, Toronto, so on and so forth. So I really love that. And then lastly is just the dynamic part of working directly with artists as well. And so it's a blessing to get to work with some of these artists who we know are just absolute superstars and partner with them on a day-to-day basis. It's dynamic, but it's also just so compelling. My love of music stems from music just being such a core part of how I've experienced emotions throughout my life, whether that's from a very early age, having two parents from Nigeria and having parties with other Nigerians and West Africans more broadly where we would listen and dance to King Sunny Ade or even the Electric Slide, and that just being such an experience of joy and life. Or later, as I would listen to smooth jazz with my dad and just think about like George Benson breezing on like a sunny, breezy Sunday afternoon, or even soul music and kind of Easy by the Commodores on a Sunday, and that just being such an environment of peace. Or later in life, as I would go to festivals and concerts and shows with my friends and just experiencing live music and the energy that's unmatched of that. Music's just always been such a core part of how I experience and channel my emotions. Even though I've always loved music, I really didn't actually think of music as a career or something that I could explore for a job until a couple of years ago when I was in business school at Stanford and was just thinking about what I wanted to do next, and really came to this insight that what mattered to me most is both continuous growth for myself, but then also putting people and helping people get into positions in which they can achieve far more than they ever thought was possible for themselves. And the more that I would just spend time in music and exploring music, discovering new artists, the more I realized that now more than any other time in history, that's possible for independent artists in achieving things that weren't possible maybe 20 years ago, if not 10 years ago. And so it's just been an exploration of doing that and working directly with independent artists to realize and really expand on their dreams. Once I decided that I wanted to get into the music business, my first steps were all about just continuing to explore that interest. And so first, in between my 2 years at business school, I interned at a music startup here in LA. STEM does distribution. Just loved seeing a company provide better tools, more transparency for artists in a way that helped them realize their vision, and felt like I caught the bug coming out of that. So back on campus then, some friends and I explored a business idea of our own, and the concept was that we would work with independent artists. So we'd put cameras into independent music venues, and when an artist was on tour, we would stream their shows into markets where they would not go on their tour. So maybe artist comes in LA, stream their show into Salt Lake City. Depending on how many people tune in from Salt Lake City, that artist may then have a good reason to go and put Salt Lake City on their tour the next time that they're routing. So would have been an amazing idea. It's 2018 before the pandemic, but nonetheless, all about just how do we support independent artists. So funny story then about how I made my way to AWAL. After I graduated from business school, moved down to here to LA, thought it was going to take me some time to find the right opportunity in music, but 3 weeks after moving down, Sunday night, went to watch Lion King at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood with some friends from business school. Almost bailed, but in any case, while I was there, I ended up meeting the person who was previously in my role at AWAL. The more we spoke, the more I realized like this was exactly the sort of thing that I had moved down to LA for. So decided, after that conversation to apply for his role as he was leaving. About 2 weeks later, had done all my interviews. About 3 weeks after that, had accepted the role to start a couple months later, and the rest is history. And so really the takeaway from that is that Lion King's a great movie, and shout out to Disney. What makes me most proud to be on the AWAL team, I'd say two things. One, we truly do put artists first, and that means being the best partner possible for artists and pushing ourselves, even if that means disagreeing with an artist on something, as long as it's in sight of his full vision, who they want to be, supporting them in that way, like that. I think that's just super meaningful. And then second, I would just say the aspect of us just being a transparent company, and that being so refreshing in an industry that isn't always transparent, to say the least. Those two things I'm really proud of, and it means a lot to me to be a part of the AWAL team. To think of my proudest achievements at AWAL, first I would say on a deal front, proud of all of the artists who I work with. First artist who I signed is artist Brian, who's from Lagos, Nigeria, and knowing how much my Nigerian heritage means to me and how much Nigeria has actually played a part in my story personally and in terms of music, that was special. Hush Forte, just been an absolute creative genius. The Van Buren guys out of Brockton, Massachusetts, just insane, the energy that comes out of them. But also would just say that on a broader level, just proud of the work that I've done to be a part of driving and changing where necessary culture at AWAL and being more of who we want to be as a company, because that impacts all of our artists globally. And so I've been very proud to see that work, is whether it's mission values or just the way that we work, and continue to evolve who we are as AWAL. If I weren't working in music, I would probably be working in travel. I mentioned earlier how what matters most to me is my own personal growth and also the growth of others around me, helping them achieve things that they might not have thought were possible, reaching their fullest potential, expanding the way that they dream. And travel has always been so core to that for me as well. Whether that's studying abroad in Barcelona on my own and with some people who I don't know for 5-6 months, or traveling to other countries or South Africa, or glacier hiking in Alaska, and just experiences of expanding my horizons, meeting people from entirely different cultures, opening my eyes to new ways of thinking, and really like dreaming about things that feel otherworldly. Travel has been so core to that, so that's what I'd be doing if I weren't in music. What am I listening to right now? So as first, it's the start of Christmas season, so I gotta say Boyz II Men Christmas album, also Soul Christmas compilation from like 1968. Those two are strong in the family rotation. But then more broadly, I'd say I actually do listen to albums, and two that have been in rotation for me recently: Max O'Cream's Weight of the World, Hush Forte's Look Closely, and then just as an artist, doesn't have a full project out yet, but can't wait for it to come out, Reggie is the truth. So yeah, that's what I'm listening to right now. The best piece of advice I can give to somebody who wants to work in music or in strategy and growth, what I do at AWAL, in any situation really, is don't wait until you have the title to do the job. There are plenty of ways to explore your interest in music, to test out things, to work directly with an artist, maybe manage an artist, or just help out with the management team of an artist. Prior to joining AWAL, one of my first plans was just to reach out to some independent record labels and offer my help, and I know my skill set and ways that could support them. So in any situation, there's really a way for you to explore music without even officially having that title. So that's what I would encourage somebody to do first.